European influence in Africa began slowly but eventually led to the colonial conquest of almost the entire continent. European contact with Africa began in the 1400s when the Portuguese established stopover ports along the coast of Africa for their ships traveling to Asia's spice markets. In the late 1500s, Europeans began taking enslaved Africans to the Americas to work in the New World colonies. The slave trade required more extensive colonial establishments on Africa's coast, leading to the territorial claims. In the 1800s, competition between Europe's newly industrialized nations led to a race for Africa's raw materials and potential markets. Two technological inventions came into use in the late 1800s that provided Europeans with the ability to conquer much of Africa. First, advances in medicine allowed Europeans to step into the interior of the continent without dying of diseases such as malaria. Second, the invention of rapid-fire machine guns allowed small groups of European soldiers to defeat armies of Africans who fought with spears, swords, or outdated guns. The chaotic scramble between European nations for African territory led European officials to meet in Berlin in 1884 to determine boundaries for European colonial claims in Africa. As a result, by 1914, Europeans colonized all of Africa except Libya and Ethiopia. From the African perspective, Europeans imposed colonial borders on Africa arbitrarily, without regard to the various languages, cultures, and political organizations of African peoples. Throughout the period of colonialism, from the 1880s to the 1960s, Africans' lives were deeply affected by European control, and they were regularly confronted with the question of how to respond to colonial rule. After their arrival in 1539, the British had an enormous influence on the diverse group of Africans living in the area now known as Nigeria. For hundreds of years, British missionaries, merchants, and soldiers interacted with Nigerians along the Atlantic coast, bringing Christianity, British education for some, and the English language to the Nigerians. During the 1800s, the British gradually conquered all Nigerian groups, often defeating them militarily with modern rifles and machine guns.